ideologies. And for that cause, guess what they did? They said Jesus was born of virgin birth. And Joseph and Mary didn't have no sexual relationship. God just say, come on, Jesus, and you born. That don't make sense. It don't make sense to me. What it meant was there was a Essene brotherhood. And Mary and Joseph was a part of the Essene brotherhood. The Essene brotherhood was those that was living according to the word of God. And when Jesus was born, he was untouched. The virgin is pure and has been untouched. Because when you begin to look at that book that I told you about, you will see that Jesus was walking one day. And there was a sister that looked real fine, just like you. And when she was walking, Jesus got caught up. See, because Jesus had to go through all the ways of life too, just like Drew Ali. He got caught up because of the music and the beauty of this sister. And Jesus said, man, let me go and get myself together. So all of us have to go through all the ways of life. We all have certain characters in us. And we got to get these things out of us to be able to be one with our Father God Allah. Islam, our divine and national movement, stand for the Pacific grand principles of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. And the Prophet Noble Drew Ali, I'm applying to all loyal, faithful Moors, members, and the American citizens to help him in his great uplifting acts of uplifting fallen humanity among the Asiatic race and nation. For he has suffered much and severely in the past through misunderstanding of what the movement is dedicated to. It is the great God Allah alone that guides the destiny of this divine and national movement. I know that all true American citizens are identified by national and national decent names in order to answer and apply to the free national constitution of this free national republic of the United States of America. The Prophet Noble Drew Ali is going to help this national government. For without a free national name with the decent flag of your forefathers, there is not a national divine title of the government in which you live. This is from your true and divine Prophet Noble Drew Ali to all Americans and foreign sympathizers. Prophet Noble Drew Ali is the founder. I just finished quoting Prophet Noble Drew Ali. At this time, I'd like to recite the Moorish American prayer, the source from which Moorish Americans draw their strength. Allah, the Father of the universe, the Father of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Allah is my protector, my guide, and my salvation, by night and by day, through his holy prophet, Drew Ali. Amen. First off, I'd like to rise, walking in Jerusalem, just like John, giving praise to Allah, the author, the creator, the governor of the world, almighty, eternal, and incomprehensible, the one who stretcheth forth the heaven with his hands, who have described with his fingers the courses of the stars, who set it bounds to the ocean that it cannot pass, and said to the stormy winds, be still. I'd like to give honor to the lily of the valley, the bright and morning star, talking about none other than our holy and illustrious prophet, Noble Drew Ali. I'd like to give honor to Prophet Noble Drew Ali because it was he who reached down into the watery grave of hatred, slander, lewdness, murder, theft, and everything that harmed and set me back upright on my feet again. I'd like to give honor to the forerunner to the Prophet Noble Drew Ali, Marcus Mosiah Garvey. I'd like to give honor to Marcus Mosiah Garvey because this brother had to have pure thoughts in order to pave the way for love. I'd like to give honor to our two flags, the flag of our origin and the flag of our birth, and honor to our charter with its 10 great wonders and mysteries that gives us the right to function in these United States and throughout the world without molestation or ridicule of any kind. I'd like to give honor to all literature pertaining to Islam in the Moorish Science Temple of America. Last but not least, I'd like to give honor to Jesus, Muhammad, Buddha, and Confucius, because in the Bible, in Deuteronomy 18:18, it says, whenever a nation is in need for a prophet, Allah will send one. And what kind of God would Allah have been if he didn't send us somebody when we fell through the middle passage, lost our minds? So he had to send somebody to redeem us from that which was lost. And for that cause, I'm now able to walk above water as Jesus. At this time, I'd like to read from the Moorish Holy Quran, the book of the seven seals that's talked about in Revelations that none was able to open, and read from the sacred pages the messages of purity and love. This book that I'm getting ready to read from, you know, you had to have this book, and Drew Ali had to come in due time to give it to us because the Rosicrucian Society had took the book unto thee I grant. They took a Quran gospel, and if Drew Ali wouldn't have came, they would have been able to make Jesus look like Charlton Heston and Ricky Nelson. But Drew Ali came and told us that Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judah in the house of David. Now you hear a lot of people going around talking about Jesus, and they want to say that there's no J. Everybody's talking about there's no J in this language or there's no J in that language. But the J is in hieroglyphics, the first language. When they was talking about the handwriting on the wall, you didn't say Egypt, because in Egypt there is a J. And not only do we talk about Jesus, we talk about Joshua, we talk about John the Baptist, and now we talk about Joaquin, the J. Now who is Joaquin? Joaquin is Sister Ruth's father. Her mother is Anna, and her husband was Joseph. So when you begin to talk about Joaquin, which is a J, that is one of the pillars of the Masonic order that the Eastern Star and the Masons use. But what is the other pillar? The other pillar is Boaz. And in the book of Ruth in your Bible, it talks about Ruth being a Moabite. And Drew Ali told us that the Moorish Americans are the descendants of the ancient Moabites who inhabited the northwestern and southwestern shores of Africa. So I want to give honor to the J, and not only because my name is James. I want to read from the last chapter in the Moorish Holy Quran. The title of the chapter is The End of Time and the Fulfilling of the Prophecies. And I read from verse 10 and 11, and it reads on this wise. It says, "Come all ye Asiatics and hear the truth about your nationality and birthrights, because you are not Negroes. Learn of your forefathers' ancient and divine creed, that you will learn to love instead of hate. We are trying to uplift fallen humanity. Come and link yourselves with the families of nations. We honor all true and divine prophets." Before I get into my brief subject matter, because I got a number, I'm on a time slot. And before I get into my subject matter, I want to talk about this verse a little bit, because everybody, if you say that you're a Sunni Muslim, then you know you have a Holy Quran of Mecca. And in this Holy Quran, they have something called the Kalima Shahada. And in this Kalima Shahada, it's telling you the thing that you have to live. It's telling you about making your decorations. And then it's going into later the 5 pillars of Islam. If you say you're a Christian, then you have to live according to the fruits of the Spirit. And if you say that you're a Moorish American, you got to live according to this book. Everybody has one of these books. But what I'm having trouble with today is most of the people tell me that they're Moorish Americans. They don't even read this book. And this is the book that gives you strength. This is the book that makes you in the world, but not of the world, because in 17 it said Jesus was walking on water. But when Jesus walked on water, that meant he walked above the things of the world. So I'm just leave that alone, but it say, "Come all ye Asiatics." And in the Bible it talked about the 7 churches that was in Asia. And the reason why the 7 churches was in Asia, because at that time, Europe was not even in existence. So I want to close this, and the title of my lesson this morning, before we call Brother Kenny started out with me, and I'm honored to have this brother here because he's been around a while and he have a lot of lessons to teach. So before we call him, I want to talk to my son-in-law, because it's imperative that I do, and this brother's in the medical field. And I want to start out by saying we're in the process of having a child, my granddaughter. And my son-in-law is from Nigeria. And he's from Nigeria, but he was told that it wasn't necessary for him to have a dual citizenship along with Nigeria and America because he was born in America. So he's just an American citizen. But Noble Drew Ali told us something else. And what Drew Ali told us in the editorial, see, I don't read no other literature but what Drew Ali gave us. And if I stay with the prophet, then I won't have no problem. So Noble Drew Ali told us, I had it so long I can quote it. He said, the citizens of all free national governments, according to their national constitution, son-in-law, are all of one family, bearing one free national name. Those who fail to recognize the free national name of their constitutional government are classed as undesirable and is subject to all inferior names, abuses, and mistreatment that the citizens care to bestow upon them. And it is a sin for any group of people to violate the national constitutional laws of a free national government and cling to the name and principles that delude to slavery. I'll stop there because I just read this here, quoted it, what Noble Drew Ali said. He said that the citizens of all free national governments, according to their national constitution, are all of one family, bearing one free national name. What is that free national name that he's talking about? If you say that you're a Moorish American Muslim, your free national name is American. All of us in this government, if you're a citizen, because in this government is known as a great melting pot. And this great melting pot is known of many different nationalities. Everybody has a nationality except the so-called Negro, colored, and black. Even dogs have a nationality. German Shepherds, Irish Setters, and Mexican Chihuahua. So Allah had to send Noble Drew Ali because in the Bible, it says, honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be longer upon the earth land which the Lord thy God, Allah, has given thee. Now, who is your father? Your father is God. Now, the Tower of Babel, a confusion of the tongue, they have many different names now because it was one language. So some people call him Jehovah, some call him Yahweh, some call him Allah, some call him God, but he's the cause that's called the rootless root from which all things have gone. This is why Noble Drew Ali brought us Islamism, which is the doctrine of Islam. We study it all because our people, because we're talking about the spirit. You meet God in the spirit of truth. So if you don't proclaim a nationality, then that means that you are not honoring. You are not honoring your father and your mother. Your mother's God. If you don't live according to the fruits of the Spirit, then you're not honoring God. You're not a child of God. And if you are not honoring your mother, is when you don't have a nationality. Everybody have a nationality. Now we have a flag here, son-in-law. And this flag that we have right here was flying here in the United States when it wasn't even being flown in Morocco. Because Morocco did not get its independence until March 2nd, 1956, from under the French rule, meaning that this flag right here was flying in the United States when it wasn't even being flown in Morocco. So we say we're Moorish American, but they say we are descendants of Moroccans and born in America because what Morocco are you talking about? Through the Berlin Conference, they got us looking like somebody else. Because when you begin to talk about Abraham and Sarah and Hagar, the Egyptian, they had a child named Ishmael, and Ishmael is the father of the Arabian nation, but they got Ishmael looking like somebody else. He ain't looking like me, but if Ruth was a Moabite. So what we have to look at, we're in this government. And Drew Ali told us this is our national republic. Our national name is American. That's why we fly the American flag. You got a lot of brothers don't want to fly the American flag. But Drew Ali said this flag protects us in our infancy and our ignorance. And this is what we have to honor what the prophet said. We got to fly both flags because he's talking about nationality. Now listen to this, son-in-law. In this book here, Drew Ali tells us that the 14th and the 15th Amendment brought the North and South in unit, placing the Southerner, which was at that time without power, with the constitutional body of power. And at that time, 1865, the free national constitution that was in force since 1774 declared all men free and equal. And if all men are declared by the free national constitution to be free and equal, since the constitution has never been changed, there is no need for the application of the 14th and the 15th Amendment for the salvation of our people and his citizens. So ain't no such, Drew Ali says it in the book. So now, the 14th and 15th Amendment, as we just said, has nothing to do with you and me. What the 14th and 15th Amendment did was brought Jefferson Davis and Robert E. Lee back into the constitutional fold because they had a war going on. And the war that was going on was the Civil War. The Civil War was a non-political issue. It had the North and South fighting each other. So the North won. So when the North won, they had to let their brothers come back in the Union. They had to let their brothers and sisters in. And so they had the 14th and 15th Amendment to let their brothers and sisters back in the Union because Drew Ali said since the 14th and 15th Amendment has never been changed. There is no need for the application of the 14th and 15th Amendment for the salvation of our people and its citizens. So they say that my granddaughter won't need a nationality because she was born here in America, but he was born in Nigeria. But that's all right too, because she has a nationality. Her nationality is Moorish American, M-O-O-R. We're talking about the men of our race. And we're talking about something that was buried. They done buried my forefathers in Vatican Square, took on the name, they done took on all these different things, and tell you about Joaquin. You never hear that in church. Tell you about Anna. Everybody I ask never tells me that Anna was Murray's mother or Joaquin was his father, because there's certain things they keep from you. Because see, when you talking about being born again, Jesus and Nicodemus was talking. And he said, you must go back to your mother's womb. He said, no, that which is of the flesh is of the flesh. And that which is of the spirit is of the spirit. So I'm going to send you her nationality card. I'm going to send it to you real soon. You don't have to go down to no courthouse and get no nationality. I was with Drew Ali's wife. I was with Drew Ali's secretary. The brother that raised me in the Moorish Science Temple knew what Drew Ali's breath smelled like. All of them got their nationality card through the Moorish Science Temple of America. If you do, Kenny asked me a long time ago, who was the spies or who was the agents? If you find somebody that's charging you for the membership in the Moorish Science Temple of America within this book, know what Drew Ali said, nationality is free. Not only here, but all over the world. So I got 2 minutes. And in these 2 minutes, I want to tell you I'm honored. Because this brother here, once we begin to work together again, we could bring Portland together. We could bring Portland together because there ain't but 2% of us here. 2%. And most of us here, I've never been to a cookout, you ain't found Asiatic and Europeans there. So that means that our work is easier and much harder. So what I want to do right now, I want to give you a blessing, Portland, Oregon. I have your one and only, your man is here, Kenny. And another thing, Kenny was the first brother that I ever seen in my entire life, and I've been in the Moorish Science Temple over 40 years, that had a picture of Elijah Muhammad and a picture of Noble Drew Ali in his house at the same time. I got a book I got to give him. But man, I seen that and I honored that because he's showing you the two brothers that raised him. So what I want to do right now, I want to turn this over to my brother so he could set our souls on fire. We call it the Last Supper. Just like Jesus was food for thought. Praise Allah.
Islam. Islam family. 5 years ago, Sheikh Lynch-Bey and I came up with this concept. And I came back here last Monday and I got to looking around. And then I got to thinking about some of the teachings that Prophet Noble Drew Ali left for us. And then in my mind eye, I was talking to one of my friends, and in my mind eye, the question popped up. Who told you that? And I got that from, because I do a lot of esoteric teachings, esoteric studies. But I remember that God was in the Garden of Eden, and he walked up to Adam, and he walked up to Eve, and they showed him everything, and he blessed them, and it was all smiles. And then he took a journey to go talk to the fish and to the birds. And he came back about 30 minutes later, and he said, Adam, couldn't find Adam. Eve, couldn't find Eve. He did it for about 5 minutes, they say. And then all of a sudden he saw Adam's head popped up from behind the leaves. He said, Adam, what you hiding for? Adam said, I'm naked. He said, who told you that? That's the question. So we were people that has been lied on, and the second biggest lie in the world, they told us that we believe everything except our ancestors. So the first biggest lie I'm not going to talk about. That's a different spiritual aspect. But that second book was the Charles Darwin theory of evolution. And it puzzles me because I had sit down and I'd listened to the conversation of my grandmothers and my grandfathers and all my aunts, and I heard them tell this story. My grandmama used to be a Chickasaw and a Choctaw and a Yamasee and a Creek and a Nanaco and all these melanated Indian people. And then this thing was seared into our conscience because we heard this every Sunday. Every Sunday when you went to Big Mama's house and she'd sit down and she shared these histories, oral history of us. And so one day, my uncle actually said slavery was such a profitable organization. Why don't you show me the museum where they got one slave ship at? Just one, anywhere in the United States. And it dawned on me that somebody might not have been telling us the truth. And then I heard the prophet voice come in my head say, if they ask me what should I study, I would say, study yourself. And if they ask me again, what should I study, I would say, study thyself. And then I reflect back on Marcus Garvey said this, the Honorable Marcus Garvey said, man, know thyself. Prophet Noble Drew Ali came to us and he said, I keep telling you, you have to study yourself. Naeem Akbar wrote a book called The Community of Self. And so I started researching the self. And I found out what put us to sleep. What put us to sleep mentally was a social construct, along with fear, along with shame of what had happened to us. Because we were told that the religion of the European was not our religion, that religion was for their earthly salvation. It had absolutely nothing to do with us. And so when I walked and looked at the Genesis, and I started hearing the stories, and I went to Genesis, the first chapter and the 5th verse, and it say that God made Adam and Eve at the same time. And so they said that Adam had another wife before Eve, and her name was Lydia. So they never told us this story. But I'm still puzzled because I believe in the truth of the Old Testament and the New Testament. And one of the truths that I believe in the Old Testament come from Genesis, the 15th chapter and the 13th verse. And it say, and he said unto Abraham, know of a surety, not think, know of a surety, that thou seed should be a stranger in a land which is not theirs, and they should serve them for 400 years. And the next verse came up and it say, and after that even I should come and judge those who've had you in bondage. But as for you, I will bless you abundantly. And then so I looked in the New Testament to find something that correlates with that. And then I went to Revelation, the 18th chapter, verses 1 through 6, and it say, come out of her, separate from her, partake not of her sins, for her sins have reached into the heaven, and God has remembered her. And so I had to study and see, who is this her? Who is this mindset? And so I started looking through books. And then I found out that The people who told us, who gave us, who we validate everything to, was absolutely the same person, the absolute same person who took your baby and made alligator bait out of it. The very same person. The same person who stood up in churches on Sundays and said, we're going to have a hanging today. The very same person. And then I looked at another guy. I looked at another guy that Jesus was talking about in the New Testament. And then Jesus came into him, he said, and you shall know the truth. Not a lie, not an emotion. He said, you should know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. And then he ran on to say, they say, we've never been in bondage to any man. And Jesus said, well, you can't be the people that God presented the prophets to. If you've never been in bondage, he's supposed to be in bondage to you. You in your society, with your social construct, you created a perfect slave with the turn the other cheek philosophy. You created a perfect slave when you went to Malachi, the first chapter, and the second verse, and it say, would a man rob God? But it also say, was not Esau Jacob's brother, said the Lord? But I love Esau, and I hate Jacob, but you turn me and tell me to love everybody and everything. So unnatural. So I, going through life, I wanted to come back to Portland so bad to see exactly what part of Oregon that I had missed, and then I saw cruelty. But in this cruelty, I had to search hard at my mind eye to see where I had seen this before. And then I read Nancy Eisenberg's book. And when I read Nancy Eisenberg's book, it's called White Trash, I saw something. I saw a people that I never wanted to see till I came back to Portland. And then when I came back to Portland, I saw something that really brought tears to my eyes. And I wonder what manner of people can let homeless people stay in the rain and the darkness with their babies. And then I said to myself, this happened to us. This is nothing new. This is the same man that burned down every church in Forsyth, Georgia. And then I say, why is this like that? And then I picked up two books. I picked up a book called, and the reason I picked up this book, first let me tell you why I picked up this book, because on Sunday morning sometime, I listened to Nation of Islam, and they was talking about things that was told by a people called the Chosen One. I don't want to call no name. But the Chosen One said that Jesus, the prophet that we love, that we honor, that we respect, that we understand that is a mindset, a righteous mindset, that prophet, according to the unmasked of the Talmud, that prophet is actually burning in his own excrement in hell. And I could not believe that book. And then I read another book. And the reason I read the second book, because Petit Lamambo told me to read this book. Petit Lamambo said if his people did nothing else on the planet Earth, they got to read a book called The Protocol of the Learned Elders of Zion. And every time we mention that book, they say the same thing. Why would you regurgitate that? Why don't you just forget it? Why don't you just move on? But some things, nature take over. We have absolutely nothing to do with the weather changing. We have nothing to do with the moral corruption that we see. We have nothing to do but watch the seed that Mitch McConnell planted when he went against Obama that produced a Donald Trump. We have nothing to do with that. Nature told us, and the books, the spiritual books say, first we will send you a prophet of wisdom. But we know you're going to reject that. And then we should send you a glitterer. And when the glitterer came, you're blinded by the illusion of materialistic substance. The God of materialism makes you go into your ego. The ego means ease God out. Ease God out of everything so you become the big I. And everything else is the insignificant you. This guy came to us and he said, why are we suffering as a Moor? Because we're not following the teaching of Prophet Noble Drew Ali. We're supposed to be an industrious people. That's what they teach us. And so my journey, and I have to smile when I think about it, but I have a daughter and a granddaughter, and their best friend. They started something called, and they ended up having a 5-star company called Leap Staffing Agency. I really, if you open to creating jobs or creating position and getting records expunged from the court, let them help you. But getting back to this Moor science, what make you believe that a person who have never treated you right gonna teach you right? What make you say over and over and over again that God gonna get them? So let me tell you a story. I was walking through the woods with a friend of mine, and we looked up and we saw King Cobra. We knew the nature of the King Cobra, and that is to spit blindness and bite death. So we froze and we stopped. But then we heard this thing hollering on the side of it. It was a mongoose. So the mongoose told the King Cobra, "Up, I see you, let's fight." And the King Cobra said, "No, I'm not going to do that today because my wife about to have a baby. But I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to sign this paper. And that when my baby gets 6 years old, I'm going to let you, mongoose, teach my King Cobra baby." I said, "The King Cobra won't do nothing like that, really, would he? But you will. Everything that you went through in life, you needed validation from your open enemy. Everything you've done in life, you brag. My children go to school with," you brag. The fear comes through your skin so bad it's shameful. And I understand buck breaking. I understand some of the things that you might have looked through, and I understand that. But once a man, twice a child. So sometime in life, you have to say, well, how did I get off this path? And the only way back on this path, I promise you, is you have to study more science and a history of our people. Mansa Musa was the greatest, richest man that ever lived on the planet Earth. I'm quite sure they never told you that. They just told you Negro colored and black. Queen Laxima freed everything that made it into the Belgian Congo. She freed everything and say, if I can get you, if you come here, you're free. Harriet Tilbury, she did everything for you. She did everything. And they said, "How much you freed her?" She said, "I bought 1,000, but I think I could have got 2,000 more if they just known it was slavery." But you believe a person who took, and this is amazing to me, it really is amazing to me. So they wrote a book, and the name of the book was, well, 2 books actually. How to Make the Negro a Christian. They wrote that book. Then for the fear and to spread poison, they wrote another book, The Negro a Beast, in the Image of God. And then in 1871, they did something really, really strange. They wrote The Secret Constitution of the United States, put a corporate thing on you. And then 1724, they did something bad, worse than that to you. They came out with the Christian Black Code of 1724. They did everything to take you from what your ancestors taught you. And you love it and you're eating it up like you're eating ice cream. And it's amazing to me. It's amazing to me because your future depends on you. So here's what I'm going to suggest. I'm going to suggest that you look at the laws of Mayat to see how you lived all those years. Look at the Moors, not the leadership of the Moor Saints Temple. Look at the brothers who come in, look at the sisters who come in, look at the devoted ones, not the ones who are not tied up with titles. That's not impressive to us. The one, like the brother Sheikh James Lynch-Bey, who's been here 5 years, virtually doing this thing by himself. But somebody got to be strong enough in some cities to push this message. This is your salvation. This is made for everybody. If a rattlesnake had a god, the god looked just like a rattlesnake. If a baboon had a god, it'll look like the baboon. Why you the only people on the planet Earth can't believe that nothing righteous or holy can come from you? That's rather amazing to me. I mean, it's really amazing to me. And so, that being said, Portland, I miss you. I really do. I really do love you. But I want you to first learn to love yourself. And the only way you love yourself, if you go to church, you have to live 2 verses I want you to go to. Jesus said, "Great is he that lives in you that lives in the world." That's what he said to you. And then in the 82nd Psalms, it backs it up because if it's in the old, it got to be in the new too. And so in the Old Testament, you go to the 82nd Psalms and the 6th through the 8th verse, and they say, "I have said that you are a God, children of the Most High God." And so if that's in you, then we're talking about esoteric teaching. We're talking about how to raise your subconscious mind. We're talking about how to reach deep inside yourself, because what you have is a MIND. And inside that MIND, there are MINEs of gold and silver and diamonds, precious stone. And it all comes from the creation of your mind. You are the source. You are the energy that you are. But you can't get it thinking doubtfully. You can't get it not praying. You can't get it not fasting. You can't get it not having righteous thought. You just can't get it like that. You have to come to a high plane. It's imperative that you meditate, find trees, sit up under trees, find quiet place, read spiritual books, read Circus 7, read Holy Quantum Mecca, read spiritual stuff. That's your salvation. And listen, your book, we have a problem. And this is not to cause confusion, but it's something to think about. And so a small church is 100 people. 100 people go to church and they put in $20 every Sunday. That's equivalent to $2,000 a Sunday. That's $8,000 a month. That's $96,000 a year off one basket. Where are your schools for your own children? Where are your houses for your membership, for your thing? Where are your farmland to feed your congregation? What have you? Where's the company that make toilet paper and you go to the bathroom every day? Where is it? I'm just curious. I don't want to see the Cadillac and the Bentleys and the Rolls Royce. I don't want to see that. I want to see us turn to ourselves and save ourselves. The book said, "Great is he that lives in you that lives in the world." So trust the is in you, the I am in you. So that's my take, and I pray that you seriously Go and study spirituality. I'm not taking nothing. We're Moors. We honor Buddha, Confucius, Muhammad, and Jesus. We're Moors. We are obligated and mandated by our nature to read all of them. Buddha taught us how to be compassionate. Maybe that's why we feel that we need to have this conversation. There's a danger. I want to tell you about something that I was reading in this book called The Protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion. And it's a troublesome read. Like I said, they killed Patrice Lumumba for telling his people in the Belgian Congo to read this book. But one chapter in particular that's grieving. In order to be if you show me a man with morals, I will show you a weak leader. And in order to govern a mass like this, we've got to be careful. We need to turn to the law in a hurry, because the despotism and despots are real. And that's all I'm going to say on that subject. But we need to come together. We need to come to Moors in particular. We need to come together. These people are really, they know something is wrong, but you got the information, Moors, and you just talk to each other. We have to do like they did. We got to go and spread this news, and you can't force it on people. You just tell them, hey man, read this, check this out. Use your mind. Use your mind. Man mean mind. Woman mean womb of mind. We need to think like that. So with that, Sheik.
Praise Allah,
Nah.
That's what I wanted from you today. I want you to talk that spiritual talk. I got you too. That's why I talked on that 14, 15 minutes before you got here. But what I want to do right now is show a picture. This is a picture of the first convention in the Moorish Science Temple of America in 1928. This picture right here, 1928. At that time, in 1928, see right there, October 15th and 20th, that was the first convention. In the first convention, the Holy Prophet Noble Drew Ali had the Moors from the temples in Chicago to go down to the polls and vote for Dupree and other brothers that was members of the Moorish Science Temple of America so they could become in political office. How does that? Because I'm almost 70, and he's over 70. And we know that in the time of Kennedy and Johnson, this is when our people was able to get this civil rights, which is a non-political issue, and start voting. Because, I'm going to get back in, but there was a brother by the name of Malcolm. And Malcolm went to youth thought at the UN. And he said, we bring the United States before the World Court and call Charles genocide. He said, who you represent, Malcolm? He said, I represent the black man. He said, we have no nation on earth for the black people. You can't even get on the agenda as Afro-Americans, because you never hear Europeans say I'm a European American, because just like St. Patrick's Day, on that day, all of the Irish, you know, they wear their leprechaun clothes and they say, man, don't call me white today. Mm-hmm. Call me Irish, because I got to honor my father and my mother, that my days may be longer. So we got to understand that in 1928, the Moorish Americans was voting. We didn't have to wait for them to give us a granted privilege, which is civil rights. Mm-hmm. Civil rights, we talking about human rights, because we become human when we took on form and pigmentation. And this is what Drew Ali gave us here in the Moorish Science Temple. Be ever mindful. And at that time too, the Holy Quran of Mecca was introduced and legally established by the Prophet Noble Drew Ali. Because when I showed you this in 1928, there was nobody else in America legally established to teach Islam. That you had people running around hiding and reading the book, but Drew Ali is the one that got legally established. Now Drew Ali say that this government is protecting us in our infancy and our ignorance. So that means that another government can come in here right now and just beat our butts. So we have to right now, just like he just said, the Moors, but the Moors are coming together. I've been in the Moorish Zion Temple of America going on 50 years. And when I joined the Moors, ain't nobody knew nothing about Drew Ali. You know, and they kept him. And you got to understand the reason why the Moorish Zion Temple of America is in the position that it's in now, because this is ain't about one leader. In every Arab time, Allah will send one with the antidote to redeem us from that which was lost. So who was the man in this Arab time? Noble Drew Ali. And why the Noble Drew Ali? Because he brought us a flag. He brought us a flag to hook us back up with the family of nations. Now Marcus Garvey got a flag, and he is our forerunner. And his flag is the red, black, and green flag. But this red, black, and green flag is the flag of the UNIA, of his organization. He already had a national flag, which was a Jamaican flag. So that's why Drew Ali had to pick him to be the forerunner. He couldn't pick nobody else, because everybody else was Negro, colored, and black. He couldn't pick a Negro, colored, and black. He had to, because if you do that, you a sin. Drew Ali said it is a sin. Now, when I went to school, and I know when he went to school, somebody call you black, they better know how to fight.
You had to.
And we didn't start calling ourselves black or soul man or brother until 1968, when Martin Luther King got killed, that everybody putting on their door, I'm a soul man, I'm a soul brother. Now, you tell me you're a soul brother, what about Sam and Dave? They sung the song, I'm a soul man. See, so nationality is the order of the day. Noble Drew Ali said, didn't we have a national name? When first brought to these shores in the early part of the 17th century, if so, what was it? Now I got to say something about this. When you look at a Moorish American, Muslim, he is one that's trying to live a moral and clean life. He don't cuss, he don't drink, he don't smoke, he don't fornicate, he lives a moral and clean life. So now they had a dude the other day and riding around in the truck and had a flag, looked just like this, our flag. I think it was so disrespectful to the Moorish American Muslims that's been living all these many years trying to live a moral and clean life and do what the prophets say. He gonna fly around because he could do it and cuss the European out. You can't do, he probably working with the government, because ain't no Moorish American gonna do that. You can look at a brother or you can look at a sister and tell if they're a Moorish American or not. You know, that's like right now, all week long, the brothers in the strip club, and then on Friday, you can come to a temple talking about some Islam. Man, what you doing? You can't serve two masters at the same time. You got to love one and despise the other. Being born again means changing your thought pattern. Yeah. When Jesus and Nicodemus was talking, and Jesus told Nicodemus, you must be born again. He said, must I go back through my mother's womb? He said, no, that which is of the flesh is of the flesh, and that which is of the spirit is of the spirit. So we have to be born again. We have to change our thought pattern. The things we used to do, the thoughts we used to have, the places we had, there got to be a great change. And that's what Drew Ali came for. That's why Allah sent him to hook us back up with the family of nations. Because before Drew Ali came, we was outside of the constitutional fold. Because if you don't have a nationality, you have no rights that the citizens are bound to respect. Everybody have a nationality in this government except the so-called Negro, colored, and black. That's what the same thing I'm saying about my granddaughter. She is American citizen, as they say, but she's not. Her father is, because he's from Nigeria. But her mother and my granddaughter are not citizens of this government because they're not honoring their father and their mother. Who was you when you first was brought to these shores? I talked to Somalians and Ethiopians, and they tell me every day, hey man, we ain't y'all. We didn't come through the slave trade. The slave trade didn't come through North Africa. The slave trade didn't come through East Africa. And Drew Ali told us that the slave trade came through West Africa. This is where the slave trade came from. So now, if the slave trade came through West Africa, everybody that you know, they check out their DNA. And when you check out your DNA, where do it take you? It take you right back there. But Drew Ali say he is Professor Drew of the Egyptian Adapt. So I want you to know that we got to start studying this Moorish Quran. A lot of us, we refer each other to a lot of other books, but we never refer them to the Moorish Quran. I heard Kenny call a lot of books out, and all them books he called out, everything is right here in this Moorish Quran. This is the 18 years, because they talk about Jesus when he was 12 years old. And you don't hear no more about him again until he's 33. The Mo just talked about Buddha. In this book, the Moorish Holy Quran, it talked about Jesus, the Buddha of enlightenment. That's why when they put Jesus on the cross, And Jesus was the Buddha of enlightenment. He left the body. When they put handprints, when they put his nails in his hand, he left the body. Then he came back because man is not the body nor the soul. He is a spirit and a part of Allah. They tell you that you meet God in the spirit and in truth. Man is not the body nor the soul. He's a spirit. It is not in flesh to think. And we talking about the devil. Drew Ali showed me that the devil was me. I was Lucifer. I was Satan. I was the devil. I was the dragon. And I was the beast. And I was that because I was of that thought pattern. When Drew Ali said get a good European education and he could use you, everybody be running to school to become a lawyer and doctor, that don't have any, you can't go, that's not European. Because when you begin to talk about being a lawyer or being a doctor, that come out of Egypt. He said get a good European education, that means that you will live in hatred, slander, lewdness, murder, theft, and everything in harm because that come out of Europe. That's why, again, I like to reiterate, in the Bible, it talk about the 7 churches that was in Asia. And the reason why they were talking about the 7 churches that was in Asia, because at that time, Europe wasn't even in existence. So you're talking about the continental drift, and you're talking about the Pangea. So we could bring this back under one head like the prophet left it. So when you begin to talk about European, that's a thought pattern. So when I was doing the thing that I was doing that was diametrically opposed to what God said, I was a European. I'm acting like a European because I was that thought pattern. Because man is not the body. We talking about thought, just like the Bible. They tell you to say in the beginning was the word. But in the beginning was not the word. In the beginning was the thought. And man thought the word. Drew Ali said thought is the cause of it all. So we could do this. And right now, we can't look for the Europeans to do nothing for us. It's on us. The reason why we don't have no toilet paper like Kenny just said, and the reason why we don't have other things, because Kenny and I haven't done it yet. But when Kenny and I sit down at the table and start talking about doing these things, then we're going to get them done. We can't look at the European to do nothing for us because it's not in his interest to do that. And why he's doing the things for us that he do, because he have to. And then the generation is going to change. So the Moorish Zion Temple of America is a holy and divine movement founded by the Prophet Noble Drew Ali. We honor this flag. Man, I got many stripes on my back from this flag. This flag done whipped me, but I fought in this war in the military. They tried to kill me in Vietnam because I was a combat medic, but Drew Ali gave me a sign. He said, this flag protects us in our infancy and our ignorance. So what we got to do is stop beefing with one another and get ourselves together and build a firm foundation. We got to follow the prophet to a destiny which is not uncertain nor unknown. In this book right here, this is 101 questions. And we was instructed to learn these 101 questions. And on the back, it says Millie Ill, Small Bey, Lovett Bey, and Former Bey. And the reason why Drew Ali didn't have no other name like Muhammad or Yusuf is because we're talking about reparation. And when you're talking about reparation, then the European won't even know who you are. The slave name ain't Portier or Lynch. The slave name is Negro, colored, and black. But when you have that name, then they say, well, that's one of the brothers that came through the advent of slavery. But when you talk about the Ill and Bey, there are 2 tribes. It was 2 tribes, the Ill tribe and the Bey tribe. And then you had an Ali tribe, but he told the Moors, don't name your children Ali. And the reason why that is, you got 100 prophets right now. Everybody Ali. Everybody won't be no Drew Ali. You got Drew Ali 1, you got Drew Ali 2, you got Drew Ali 3. But what did they bring that Drew Ali number 1 didn't bring? But Drew Ali told us too, vanity is beyond them all. So weep not therefore at the calamities of the human state, rather laugh at his follies. So we talking about finance, man, everything is all ours. I remember we didn't pay taxes, we didn't do all that. But what took place, the reason why it's the way it is now, because we let them chumps in the door and they just carried Drew Ali on another way and started doing things another way. But it's important. My best thing was I joined the Moorish Zion Temple when there was no computers. You know, when there was no cell phones. You know, back in the 70s and late 60s in places back there when I first heard about Drew Ali, and you had to go to the library and stand up in there all day to learn these things. But right here, every time I look at this, I think about Bessie Ross. And Bessie Ross was paralyzed. And she had the girl in the quarters to do this flag here. You know, and when you begin to talk about the 13 original colonies, when you begin to talk about when those people came over here from England, all they people that put out of jail. They was in the penitentiaries over there. And they came over here and gave us their concepts, their ideology. We think like them. Give back to Caesar what belonged to Caesar. Come out of her. Like he just said, come out of what? Come out of their thought pattern. Give their thought pattern back. Start living according to love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, and not hatred, slander, lewdness, murder, theft, and everything that's harm. I told Satan this morning, I said, Chump, if you be good, I read my Quran to you. And I read the lesson that you really need to hear, Satan. But there was a time I just said that the devil made me do it. I was so weak. I said the devil made me do it. But I come to find out now that Lucifer, Satan, devil, dragon, the beast try to break in my house. They want to get in there and get my literature because they said something about that dude. He got some literature, man, that we can't get him. So let's try to get that Moorish literature he got. And now they want to proclaim their nationality. Lucifer, Satan, devil, dragon, the beast want to put an ill bay on their nationality. That's how strong the Moors is.
Yeah.
So the only strength that Satan have, which is a thought pattern, is the strength that we get at, Chump. So right now, we're moving about. I mean, the more that I know a lot of them. And a lot of it, see, you got to overcome. 7 is the number of perfection, and we're striving to reach perfection. And it's a process. But what I'm going to do right now, I want to say, Ken, it's an honor, man, to see you again, brother. And from where you are, and from me being right here, because I ain't going to change. I took a vow to do this. This is my life work. And I've been doing it for 5 years, and the same thing with Mac Dishman. We right there. You know, I can understand now why we can't get a lot of people to come to the temple. Because, you know, I told the brother, he said, my grandmother ain't like that. Because they got somebody in their family European. Tell me somebody up here don't have somebody there. And they said, man, you can't do that. My grandmother ain't like that. I said, man, all Europeans like, it's a thought pattern. You know, we talking about DNA. This is another book right here for health building. You know, we got to fast. You know, I had this book since the 70s. Dr. Lynch-Bey gave it to us. Tell you to eat right. Just like you look, brother, eating shrimp and scavenger. You know, the book of Leviticus. You know, talking about the hoofs. You know, we have a dietary law. But we'll get into that another time. So it's always an honor to be able to come before our Portland listening audience to talk to you about the last prophet, Noble Drew Ali. We want to thank Open Signal for giving us this opportunity to be able to be with our brother Kenny, 48 years, and come by, Cindy Portier's cousin, and talk about the prophet Noble Drew Ali. At this time, I recite the Morse Markham prayer. Allah, the Father of the universe, the Father of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Allah is my protector, my guide, and my salvation, by night and by day, through his holy prophet, Drew Ali. Amen. Praise Allah. I'm going to take a picture with you. Yeah, see, this is a different kind.